In case you haven't noticed, Texas is booming. Even before the COVID pandemic, the Texas population grew more than twice as quickly as the nation's. Within Texas, the Austin Round Rock area outpaced all others, growing nearly 30% in that time period. We'll tell this story from a formerly small town northwest of Austin called Liberty Hill, right on the edge of the hill country. As home prices have risen in Austin proper, the suburbs are seeing a big influx of population, and Liberty Hill is no exception. As the 2021-2022 school year begins, the local school district has 1,829 more students than just last year. While these changes may spell economic prosperity, many are concerned about the impact on the area. And we're not just talking about Austin's weird, slacker vibe. As more people move in, animals and plants may be squeezed out in favor of concrete, homes, and, in some cases, manicured lawns that can't stand local conditions without lots of watering. What can residents, and these new residents, do to avoid the worst-case scenario and maintain the natural world that drew them to this area in the first place? They can go wild. By this, we mean they can make their own yards and gardens hospitable to the insects, birds, and mammals that live in their area. To learn more about this, we touched base with Kelly Simon, a wildlife biologist at Texas Parks and Wildlife and author of the book Texas Wildscapes: Gardening for Wildlife. We asked Kelly how she came to be in this role.
It really was a deep appreciation for how things worked together in ecology and the system that it represented. I like how things work together.
In a wildscape, 3 essentials work together to attract wildlife: food, shelter or cover, and water. The National Wildlife Federation adds to these places to raise young and sustainable practices. A key concept to understand here is that what's natural in one part of the world or in one part of the state isn't natural in another.
So understanding how those elements work in your area is really important, and implementing those that understanding in your own habitat where we have a little bit of control.
Because we couldn't hope to cover everything important in a brief video, we've created a website at txwildscape.org with lots of information and, more importantly, links to great resources where you can learn what's native to your patch of land. But the greatest source of information is right around you. Kelly says you shouldn't do anything until you've lived in and observed, and most importantly, recorded your learnings about the natural world outside your door for a full year.
That's because you want to understand the cycles. You want to understand, where is the sun in relationship to my backyard and my front yard? Where is it in summertime versus wintertime? Where are different types of soils in my yard? Understanding, where do you have trouble spots or difficult spots, or places that are going to be difficult to grow things? Where do you have treasures that you might not know about until you come into a particular season of the year?
Then, armed with that knowledge, you can start on the essentials. Most food for wildlife comes from plants or from other wildlife, so you'll want to find out what insects like, what birds gravitate to, and plant or encourage the growth of those natives. At our house, we've got live oaks, which produce acorns, and we've planted blackberries and a peach tree. We've also set out some bird feeders where we can enjoy the comings and goings. Next is water.
The water should be clean and it should be moving. So if you only have, like, for a bird bath, a still bird bath, that's fine as long as you empty it out regularly, because those places can be havens for mosquitoes. You don't want that. Or if you keep a pump in it and you recirculate that water, that'll take care of your mosquito problem or potential for problems. But it needs to have some certain a couple of characteristics. One is it needs to be shallow enough that wildlife can enter it and, crucially, exit it as well.
A couple of years ago, I started a mini pond fountain around the side of the house, surrounding it with native plants and even adding some grass that I found growing in a nearby creek. It seems to be doing the trick. Finally, shelter or cover.
One of the first things people like to put out are bird boxes, but understand that not all birds nest in boxes. Some of them nest in the grass. Some of them will only nest in hastily constructed nests that are on limbs. That's like, I'm thinking of mourning doves and white-winged doves. They're terrible nest builders, but they won't nest in a box. They'll only nest in a nest that they've constructed themselves. So if you're looking for chickadees, wrens, titmice, woodpeckers, owls, you can provide nest boxes for them.
What we try to do is let fallen leaves lie so they'll turn into compost, and they provide lots of places for bugs to hide. We also leave some fallen trees and branches in place so smaller mammals, and even bigger ones, feel safe. Besides the joy of preserving nature and soaking in its beauty, there are some benefits to wildscaping you may not be aware of. A recent study found that the more different types of birds people have living around them, the happier they are. So birdsong equals happiness. Research also indicates that kids who spend time in nature do better academically.
Creating that functioning ecosystem creates valuable habitat. It will attract different insects that are valuable and sustainable. It will attract different birds. It will attract different lizards. It will attract lots of different wildlife that are entirely appropriate for an urbanized area and that provide exceptional wildlife watching, wildlife viewing opportunities for the people who live there. And we're healthier people. We are people who have less pain, less anxiety when we have regular access to nature.
To find out more about how you can foster a wildlife-friendly environment in your yard, check out our website, txwildscape.org, where we'll share information and link to great resources for going wild.